What biohacking means to me is to control what goes in you, on you, and around you to optimize your biology and optimize your brain.
If you are looking to move the needle for your health and longevity, then the Optimal Performance Coach, Sean McCormick, is here to help us with more productive thinking, faster recovery techniques, sleep hacking, lifestyle hacking, habit hacking, positive routine creation.
Next step to that is like a 3-day water fast or a 5-day water fast. And I've done probably a dozen of those 3 or 5-day water only fasts. And the experience is hellish. It's terrible. You get the headaches, you get withdrawals from caffeine, you're irritable, you get GI disturbance. What the truth is that
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. You are looking for the best health and longevity tips and tricks. You are looking for the health and longevity tips and tricks that are going to move the needle the most for you. Our next guest, Sean McCormick, is a wealth of knowledge and has a wealth of experience with all sorts of biohacks, including some that you may never even have considered. I first met Sean back in 2019 when he graciously had me on his podcast titled Optimal Performance, a podcast with over 517 episodes. I'm excited today to return the favor and frankly to pick his brain on some of the protocols he has done and shared on his social media. If you are looking to move the needle for your health and longevity, then the Optimal Performance Coach, Sean McCormick, is here to help us with more productive thinking, faster recovery techniques, sleep hacking, lifestyle hacking, habit hacking, positive routine creation, and the goal is to do all of that rapidly and with the least amount of work. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm so excited, man. The fact that it was that long ago is kind of blowing my mind. We've known each other for years, haven't we?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like we've touched base here and there, exchanged emails, and I'm seriously very excited to be able to return the favor. Now, before we jump into your area of expertise, I want to go further back. I want to go much further back. What was it like growing up little Sean? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? If there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a coach, a biohacker, a podcast, a health experimenter, what or who would that event be?
Yeah, really my sort of genesis moment was when my parents taught me transcendental meditation when I was 12. I was a busybody kid, athlete, loudmouth, sitting in the front of the class, bugging teachers, do-gooder, mama's boy, just couldn't sit still to save my life. And any amount of sports that I was involved in that would lead to, college scholarships and semi-professional after college in soccer, that level of energy, my parents quickly understood needed to be balanced by stillness and patience and an ability to self-regulate. I'm sort of the oldest millennial. I was born in 1983. In fact, my birthday's tomorrow. I'll turn 42.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday. Early birthday.
Thank you. And during that time, diagnoses for ADD and ADHD were just beginning. I personally believe that it's a cop-out diagnosis. It's kids sitting around in LED lights, under LED lights all day long is not conducive to learning. Little boys like myself just don't really respond to sitting still all day. However, the doctor said, he probably does have some attention deficit stuff. My father is a behavior analyst and sort of Skinner-esque, operant conditioning. So growing up in a household where, we had positive reinforcement constantly, my dad didn't want to medicate me. So we experimented with high dose of caffeine when I was like 8 or 9, having 3 or 4 cups of tea to calm me down because it has sort of an effect to calm when you have high energy. And so instead, around 12 years old, right as I was kind of getting into puberty, my dad sat me down and taught me transcendental meditation, gave me a mantra. And that was my first real experience in interoception, understanding what's going on in my body, understanding what's going on in my brain, having the ability to self-regulate, having a tool, a practice for calming myself when I was elevated and couldn't sit still. So that was kind of the kicking off point. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I've lived here my whole life, up here in the Pacific Northwest, running around in the woods barefoot and looking for Sasquatch and, getting rained on literally 11 months out of the year and not caring about it at all. And that meditation practice, which I hated, literally just despised.
I was going to ask.
Oh, God, it was terrible. The last thing, my parents would just say, Sean, you need to go sit. And they would say that every time I was bugging them, Sean, you need to go sit. And I would go begrudgingly sit. I couldn't read a book. I couldn't, I just had to sit still with my eyes closed. And it was about 8 months of hating it before I had that moment where it all clicked. It all clicked. I had that deep theta brainwave state, that sense of calm and interconnectedness, that sense of peace and stillness in my heart that felt really good and really nourishing. And so I kept up with it at my parents' sort of directive. That was really the kicking off point that would later lead to, opening up sensory deprivation tank centers, getting into personal coaching and performance optimization, experimentation with psychedelics, really being a curious person about the way that our minds and our bodies work. And then that would lead, of course, to the podcast and all sorts of other cool stuff. So it was out of a sort of directive by my parents that you gotta figure something out. You need to leave us alone and go sit. And that was a real key turning point for me. And now my kids meditate at 9 and 12. They have their own meditation practice, which really helps them too.
So one of the things, I have 14-year-old twins, boy-girl twins, and they're both ADHD. She's off of medication and doing extremely well. And I've actually insisted that his dosage not increase as his weight increases, right? So he's probably at 1/4 of the dose that from when he started and is managing very well. I remembered, I just intuitively knew that they needed to have some sort of meditation piece. But at the same time, when you're dealing with an ADHD, probably boy more than girls, like girls actually end up getting diagnosed later in life because they're tile counters, right? They look up and they're just counting the tiles and they're not, they're distracted, but they're not interrupting things. And I remember thinking, so I'm having him sit down and, it was, I don't know, it was maybe 8 years old and I'm trying to hit 10 minutes. And it was like, they say a timeout is supposed to be 1 minute per year of age. So like this is literally the punishment that we often use is a timeout, right? But it's actually going to have this beneficial thing. And I don't know if you saw, I think it was Huberman, it could have been Attia, but Huberman who I saw once said that if you do one meditation that's about, I think it's 12 minutes, it might be 17 minutes, that can rewire you like in perpetuity, right? Like right? So it's not magic, but it actually does rewire your brain and you just need to do that well. Have you played around with, I'm trying to think of the devices that I have, a Muse device to kind of understand your meditation. There's one that shines lights at you. I can't remember. It's a visor. I just started playing. My wife bought that. I was like, that's going to be useless. And then I started watching some videos. I was like, let me try that. And then I've also used Mindy. Have you played around with any of those?
Yeah, I do. I have my Mindy right here, and I love it. Neurofeedback is akin to meditation in which it allows you to have some sort of practice of focusing your mind and attention. And my kids do Mindy as well. For those of you who don't know what Mindy is, it essentially measures blood flow to your prefrontal cortex while you wear this little visor, and you, with your mind, make this little ball go up a hill on your phone through the app, which is It's simple, it's straightforward. It's interesting. It will capture your attention for 10 minutes. And so I have done that. My meditation practices have switched over the years, from mindfulness to Zazen to conscious awareness to all sorts of other different styles. I think for especially young people, neurofeedback, especially the Mendy, is really useful because it's something to do. You're still looking at a screen. You're still playing a game with your brain, which is amazing. But even before that, breath work is I think in a lot of ways better than meditation for people who have never done meditation before, because people don't know what to do. Say Sharim in your head while you're breathing. That's a TM mantra based meditation. Sharim, Sharim, Sharim. I'm going to say Sharim 7,000 times in 20 minutes as part of my, transcendental meditation practice. But what breath work does is it gives you something to do and say, and it will affect your state faster. So something like a box breath, which I don't love actually. The 4-7-8 to start, and then just 5 seconds in, picturing bright white light coming into your body every in breath. And then with every out breath, you say release in your mind and you let go of breath that no longer serves you. It's dark, it's sooty, it's smoky. So combining breath work with sort of conscious awareness and having a focal point is really, I think, way more effective at getting people on the path to meditation, because it's, what to do. And going back to attention, going back to a mantra is okay. But breath work is really, I found to be way more effective for coaching clients of mine, for my kids, and for people who are interested in the benefits of meditation, but are just befuddled by, what do you want me to not think? I can't not think. That's what everybody says. Like, how do I not think? I don't know how to do that. And you're right, it's tough. So that's what I say is meditation and breath work and neurofeedback, specifically the Mendy, have proven really effective.
Yeah, and I think they're great tools. And yeah, my son can sit down because he's, I don't know if this is kids in general or ADHD kids even more specifically, but addicted to devices. So I'm constantly managing devices. And if you can give him a device that he can sit there and do something, like he couldn't be happier, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's working on his mind. I find it a little frustrating because you don't know what you don't know, right? I kind of equate it to training your subconscious mind to pick up on triggers. And I'll give you an example. We have two Teslas, right? And the Tesla makes you yank on the wheel every now and then in order to prove that you're awake. Actually, that one doesn't do it anymore. It's actually watching you, a little creepy, but whatever. And when we got into the other one, into the X, it's got a little its warning that you need to pull on the wheel is much more subtle. And so I would miss it a lot. But then your subconscious gets used to it, and eventually your subconscious keys in on it. And then, I've trained my brain, or my brain trained itself, however you want to describe it, to key in on that notification. And I feel like the Mendy is very similar, where I'm just oblivious to what it is that I need to be doing, and I have to do it more in order to even remotely get close to understanding what I need to be doing in this context. I don't know if you felt any of that early on, and did it take a while? What was your experience?
It takes a while. Absolutely. Yeah. It takes a while. Any sort of new skill, especially a skill associated with your attention, takes a minute to develop. And so as simply as you can do it in the beginning, the better chance of success that you have. The real key is when you have a moment like I had when I was 12 and a half, where I have felt it. I actually had an experience of warmth and stillness and goodness and peace. Like that's really kind of the turning point that I think you really want to get to before you cast it aside, because you could do something that's good for if you don't, eating broccoli is not a treat for people. Most people don't love eating broccoli, but if it helps your bowel movements the next day and you realize, oh, like that feels better. I feel like I'm more regular. I feel like my digestion is improving. Then you make that connection, that experiential connection to this thing that you're doing for yourself. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with everything. You do 5 push-ups in a day, and then the next day you do 6, and the next day you do 10. It builds, and then suddenly you can see muscles in your chest. And then it's like, oh, Oh, it's having an effect. I'm noticing that my body or my brain is shifting in a certain way, and that's where things turn. That's where you connect to that practice. But no, it takes a while, and all the best stuff does. All the best stuff takes a while to get to.
Just real quick, because I want to move on. I'm fearful that we could talk forever, and we do have it already. Do you ever play around with like Joe Dispenza's stuff? And also Sam Harris has a meditation app. Have you played with either one of those?
I have played around with Sam Harris's app. I know a lot of people like it, but I don't like it. It's too much talking for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of really intent, right? And I probably did that one for about a year. And it's really trying to generate awareness of the fact that consciousness is kind of independent of everything. And that can be a lot of work. And so like I've visited it every now and then, and I'm like, this is a lot of work. I'd rather, like, Joe Dispenza's is more like relax or just get on the Mendy, or, you know, even just like put on some, I've been playing around with binaural beats too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so much there. I think because of, and you already mentioned this, because of your meditation, you started a float tank franchise, right?
Right.
Talk a little bit about that. Why did you get married to it? Was it the movie? I can't remember what that movie was.
Altered States.
Altered States. And then, like, how did this evolve? Like, today you've worked with NFL, MLS players, CEOs, founders. Like, kind of walk us through that kind of journey.
Yeah, well, I decided to pull the ripcord and get out of the corporate world at 28.
What were you doing in the corporate world at that time?
Yeah, I was selling advertising. I was an account executive for a radio group here in Seattle, which was fun. It was cool. It was a great lifestyle. You know, I was good at it, but it wasn't really nourishing my soul. So I said, okay, well, if I was going to own my own business, what would I want to do? Like acai bowls in Hawaii? Would I want to do, you know, whatever? What it really came down to was I had a pretty profound experience in a float tank at a guy's house that I found on Craigslist.
Okay, that sounds shady already, but go ahead.
It's as shady as it sounds. I mean, he
maybe even more.
he got naked in his basement and got into his float tank, you know, this yoga instructor. But the experience.
People are concerned about selling bicycles on Craigslist.
Yeah, right.
You're like, so here's the plan. I'm going to come over there. I'll get naked. I'll get into your float tank.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It was the early 2000s, and I had a really profound experience. And then I started to do a little bit of market research to figure out, you know, why is there not a float center location here in Seattle? There was one in Chicago. There was one in Austin. You know, I think that there was like 14 in the country when we opened in 2012. And it really was the marriage of all the things that I love, you know, elite athlete. So the recovery from the float sessions was excellent for my body. You know, the float tank kind of meditates you, you know, because there's no external stimuli and you're weightless in 10 inches of 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt water. So it felt really good. It was sort of trippy and weird and cool, which, you know, I love that stuff. And nobody was doing it. And so, you know, I talked my wife into getting out of this really good job and starting a float center. And it was perfect timing. We were the first float center in Seattle since I think 1992. And it blew up right away. And so we grew to 1 location and 2 locations and then 3 and 4. And I loved it. Eventually I sold it because I wanted to go do other things and I wanted to sort of expand my awareness. And during that time I got my coaching certification, but and started the podcast. But it did allow me to meet really high performing people who would kind of 2 different camps, right? People who have pain, injury, and illness, stress, and lack of sleep regularity, they float. And then high performers, edge seekers, people that want to get the benefits of expedited recovery or deep mental states. So I worked with a number of Seahawks guys and Mariners guys and Sounders players with the Float Center. and then combined my knowledge of biohacking and personal development, breath work, meditation, and spiritual development, and through my coaching certification was able to work with, pretty big names. I was working with Russell Wilson for a couple of years when he was in Seattle, working with Mariners players, and they don't know anybody like me, right? They may have coaches, they have PTs, they have body workers who are really, world class, but they don't have like mad scientist biohacker guy in their corner that's teaching them how they can recover through their breath in about 10 seconds, or, increase their hormone profiles through supplementation that were okay with that would help them where they could still pass a blood test. So it was through that grow. And then now I work with people really all over the world who are really high performers, who they want to know what I know about health, about longevity, about looking good, feeling good, recovering faster. They want to know all the tools. And, at 517 episodes of the OPP, I've talked to a lot of people and I've picked up some of my favorite stuff, products like yours that have a massive impact on people. And they're just not exposed to. They're busy growing their company, or they're busy, starting at center back for the Sounders, and they don't know what I know. So as that continues to expand, the coaching offering, I get to be a generalist. I get to know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, and I apply that in a custom way to really high performers to help them become even better.
It's pretty cool. I think one of the reasons those float tanks, I imagine, are pretty expensive. And it's not just the tank. It's also like the maintenance in the water, and you got people in and out of the water and all that stuff, right? So what does a float tank run, or what did it run when you guys kind of set up?
Yeah, we purchased 4. We bought one of them used and refurbished. You could easily spend $60,000 on a really high level float tank that has, oxygen, being piped in, and, really like world-class sanitation. Most of them are somewhere between, 10 and 15K for, the basic sort of model. But yeah, it's an expensive upfront cost. Maintenance isn't too bad. You pay a lot of money for Epsom salt, you pay a lot of money for the water bill. But other than that, it's a lot of upfront cost and build out. And since I've sold that business to my general manager, he's crushing it, thriving, because now they do cold plunges and infrared saunas in the same facility. So you could spend 4 hours there doing, contrast therapy, and then the float tank, and then back into contrast therapy. And so now there's like becoming like little biohacking facilities. So, there's all sorts of things that you can tinker around with in the float tank, from, visualization to self-healing to, even some more fringe stuff that's way out there.
I did float tanks probably for about 3 months here in Houston at a location. And my experience, I just fell asleep. And there's probably some indication of like, I need to sleep better or whatever. But I would just get in there, I'd be comfortable, and I'd be out. And it was great. It was relaxing, but it wasn't the mind experience that I was hoping for. And I know afterwards they would you could inhale some oxygen afterwards, right? So they would have that in their little kind of lobby. I wonder if anybody's pumping hydrogen into these float tanks, because that would make that would be very interesting.
That would be interesting. Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. So we've already talked a little bit about biohacking. Let's kind of start with definition. What is biohacking to you?
Yeah, that's an important question to ask, because it for some people, when they hear biohacking, they think about Neuralink, or they think about, subdermal, devices and all sorts of high-tech futuristic stuff. What biohacking means to me is to control what goes in you, on you, and around you, to optimize your biology and optimize your brain. So what does that mean? Well, what goes in you, that's nutrition, that's supplementation, that's also the air that you breathe, That's the things that go on your skin, that seep through your skin and into your system. What goes on you is the clothes that you wear, the products that you use, from, phthalate-free detergents, non-scented aromas and stuff, and, the way that you wash your clothes, the shoes that you wear that are either helping you get stronger or taking away from the stability of your feet. And then around you is light management, EMF management, basically like feng shui of the way that your household is oriented. How much time outside do you get? And that kind of covers all your bases. If you are very aware that you are being exposed to EMF all day, every day, no matter where you are, unless you live in a cabin in the woods, in which you're probably not listening. If you are aware that all of those smells that your grandma has when she sprays Febreze inside the house those are forever chemicals that are getting into your bloodstream. If you're using traditional laundry detergent with a lot of aromas in it, those are terrible for your endocrine system. They're terrible for your hormones. If you're eating hyper palatable 28 ingredient snacks and foods and stuff all day, that's disrupting your gut microbiome. So when you take a big holistic view of all of the things that are going on in you, on you, and around you, you begin to feel better. You begin to sleep better. You begin to have more energy. You begin to look younger. And now it becomes very quickly sort of a lifestyle. It can really easily become kind of a hobby. I want to eat organic food. I want to try fasting. I want to not smell. I don't want to spray cologne on myself and walk around because that's terrible for my system. The biohacking equipment. So there's equipment, there's practices, there's supplements that as long as you cover your sort of foundations of in you, on you, and around you, you're taking care of all of those variables, then you've got a good leg to stand on. Then you can begin to add detoxification protocols, which more and more in the last couple of years, I've come to realize just what that actually means and how important it is for people, because we have the equivalent of a plastic spoon worth of plastic inside of our brain. There was a recent study that came out. So how do we detox that stuff? How do we get free radicals, which is a buzzword for you? How do we take care of oxidative stress? How do we handle our detoxification processes? Oftentimes it's about what's not going into your body that's more important than what is going into your body. And then from there, then you can start to tinker around with red light therapy or cold exposure or, training your eyes, there's so many cool gadgets around, but really at a base level, are you getting outside? Are you getting your feet in the ground? Are you dialing in your nutrition? Are you managing light exposure especially in the evening time? Are you not just cooking yourself with EMF all day? These are the sorts of things at a base level that you have to take care of, and then you can kind of expand out to include more practices.
I like because as you were talking about in, on, and around, in my mind it was like, well, where does Mindy fit, right? Okay, it's on you, but it's more about the experiences. I like the basics are in, on, and around. Like maybe work on that first, and then go get a Mindy device or go do cold plunges, or like then it's the experiences after that. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you could be taking great supplements, you could be doing amazing protocols in red light therapy or Mindy, but if you have insane amount of disruption to your system already, it's not going to be as effective. You're not going to notice it. You're going to be, this is sort of idea of signal to noise ratio. Like if your body is constantly fighting itself, if it's in fight or flight all the time, you're not going to really notice the benefits of Mindy. You're not going to really notice the benefits of red light therapy or, vibration plates and those sorts of cool biohacking stuff, because it's already noisy inside your body. So you're not, it's not going to click for you. So yeah, I mean, once you take care of that foundational stuff, then you realize like, oh, I do feel really good when I have red lights going on my testicles, right? Like I notice,
Yeah.
I notice that, man, after
Did
15
you
minutes.
did you get that from the float tank guy?
Yeah, right. This for those of you watching on YouTube, or for those of you not watching on YouTube, I'm holding up this. It's a cup basically for men. It can also be used for women, and it has a very powerful red light that you put in your undercarriage because exposing your genitals to red light where the skin is thin and you have all these photoreceptors, it can be a massive boost to your energy. There's a bunch of different things. So yeah, I mean, get the simple stuff down, get it down, stay consistent with it, and then start adding in, and to your credit, Chris, products like yours I prefer than more the niche stuff, because products like yours are sort of meta products. They help everything, right? Really high quality water that doesn't come out of your tap is sort of a meta approach to biohacking. Like we get water from an artesian spring. It's the only water we use that we consume in the house. We have filters everywhere for showering and so forth, so we don't get exposed to the chlorine and the bromine and the fluoride and the pharmaceuticals that have found their way into the water system. I don't want to be bathing in cocaine or fentanyl or birth control in the shower. I certainly don't want to be drinking it. So products like yours that affect literally everything at the cellular level, those are biggest bang for your buck. And so focusing on products like that are really beneficial. But again, you have to clean up the system first so that you are setting yourself up for success.
Well, thank you for talking about my product. Obviously not a requirement. I enjoy it, and thank you. I've been following your social media, and you've been doing some really cool biohacks. But I do want to share this one thing. One of the things that impressed me about you and the journey that you're clearly on is when I introduced you to my friend Patrick Wanis, who's a human behavior expert. And I was like, hey, you might want to do a session on air. And you were like, yes. And I think it was already recorded a week later. I kind of went back. It's episode 276. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and like how quickly you jumped onto it, and what impact, if any, it had? Because sharing Patrick's gift is certainly one of the things that is a mission statement for me.
Yeah, I don't love therapy. I've tried it a couple of times.
I love that.
Right? I'm Irish, right? I just don't love it. It doesn't resonate with me.
If you're Irish, therapy is usually at the bottom of a bottle. Like that's
right.
Stereotypically.
Exactly. Right. Like I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do love exploring my own mind and understanding myself better. And I can only go so far by myself. So when I had Patrick come on and we did, was it a hypnosis session?
He calls it SRTT, subconscious rapid transformation technique. It was born out of hypnosis, but he's gotten rid of there's no reason to walk down to the lake and be calm. He doesn't need that anymore. But it has hints of hypnosis in it.
Yeah, that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and as always, like I'm always out in the open, right? I'm maybe too out in the open. I speak really openly about the things that I do and the things that I worry about and the things that I'm hacking for myself and on my path to being the best version of myself in every way. And so doing that session with Patrick, and I remember it really vividly, we went back to little Sean in my childhood and addressed some issues that I had around money, some issues that I had around sort of my relationship with money. And I came up in a household where, it was a touchy subject and a negative subject. And frankly, I have more work to do there, feeling worthy of receiving money is something that I still have a hang up on. But it's for me, sessions like that allow you to learn more about yourself and then to do something about it. is critical for personal development. And that can be done with a coach, that can be done with someone like Patrick, but you, especially high performance people, and I know this just from years and years of coaching just elite people, pro athletes and founders and executives, is they're really good at kidding themselves. Really good. They can talk themselves into just about anything. They can talk themselves out of just about anything. High performance people are really good at bullshitting themselves. And because of that, it's really nice to have somebody that is from the outside that can hold up a mirror in a new way and say, hey, you need to take a look at this. That is such a meaningful investment in your time and resources, because you don't know what Patrick knows, and you don't have the ability to go back to your childhood self and uncover some of the issues that you have around
objectively.
love.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Love, affection, relationships, money, high performance. It's really useful. And the thing is that it's uncomfortable, and that's okay. It should be unnerving, because that's where we grow. That's where we learn about ourselves. If you're so closed off and so afraid to fail and be exposed, you're working against yourself in such a profound way that you're going to wake up at 65 and go, who am I? What's important to me? Why am I like this? And so I always encourage people to experiment with, EMDR. I don't do it, but I refer many of my clients to EMDR, which is, I think, the most effective type of therapy, which basically rewires some of your stuff from a childhood, that uses a physiological sort of tick-tock back and forth to cross your meridians. EMDR is massively powerful. But yeah, no, that was a really cool session. I haven't heard from Patrick in a while. Maybe I should reach back out to him.
Yeah, he's still doing amazing stuff. It's interesting. You're kind of talking, it can be a little scary. And I love the phrase, the treasure you seek is in the cave you're scared to enter, right? And so like enter the cave. That's kind of what you're talking about. And then athletes bullshitting themselves. I remember I read an article, and there's actually a test that's kind of fascinating about how you can determine if people are comfortable lying, right? And that's an interesting study in and of itself. But they found that elite athletes were better at lying, right? Because there is a part of you that you're walking up to the starting line, right? Unless you're flow, right? Like you're walking up to the starting line is like, I'm going to beat that person who's been doing this longer and who has beaten my time every single time they've ever run. But you're stepping up there with the confidence to do it. And I think you need that confidence to actually do it. But where's that confidence coming from? It's coming from a lie, and then you make it a truth. Like it's cool that you mentioned that. I think there's a lot of bullshitting going on.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
All right, so you've been on a biohacking tear. I'm going to open it up first. So what are some of the kind of modalities that are extreme that other people maybe haven't tried or wouldn't try, or might be the cave that they're afraid to go into? Talk a little bit about some of those.
Well, I'm going to hit with the weirdest, strangest, scariest one. So I became aware of dry fasting a couple of years ago. I read a book called The Phoenix Protocol by August Dunning and did a deep dive into the Russian research. It's been around since the 1700s that takes a look at no food, no water at all for 5 days. 7 days, 9, 11 days in a row, literally zero water. And everybody knows that you die if you don't have water for 3 days. That's everybody. Well, that's not true. That's not true. So dry fasting, I believe, and we'll come back to this March 11th, 2025. In a couple of years, dry fasting is going to be as popular as intermittent fasting. It's going to be as popular as water fasting or juice fasting. So the whole premise is that when you have you ever done a water fast before, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I do a 24-hour.
Right.
I haven't actually gotten beyond that, and it's on my radar because I feel like it would be a good experience.
So what happens, and so a lot of people know, keto and intermittent fasting. If you fast for a little while, if you skip breakfast and just have black coffee and then have lunch, you're doing something good for yourself, which is true. The next sort of step in that is a 24-hour water only fast. The next step to that is like a 3-day water fast or a 5-day water fast. And I've done probably a dozen of those 3 or 5-day water only fasts. And the experience is hellish. It's terrible. You get the headaches, you get withdrawals from caffeine, you're irritable, you get GI disturbance. And what the truth is that when you are still drinking water, but not eating any food, you're still activating your digestion. You're still activating the digestive process. So your organs turn on, they go into processing the water. Dry fasting is better than water fasting because for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you don't consume any water, your organs get an actual opportunity to rest. So in 24 hours without food or water, and that's like don't even brush your teeth, when 24 hours happens, you get a new gut lining. The sort of dead lining of your gut sloughs off, makes its way down to be excreted, and you get a new gut lining, which is everybody's guts are messed up from glyphosate, from toxins, etc. Like everybody's got gut issues. When you are doing a dry fast, you are creating your own metabolic water. And most people don't realize that our body makes like 2 liters of water a day on its own. So in 5 days or 7 days of a dry fast, you're actually urinating the whole time because you're making metabolic water. That is like the purest version of water that you can actually have inside your body. So what happens after 2 days or 3 days, you get into deep ketosis, and you can kind of feel it happen. You get into an incredible amount of autophagy. So all the dead cells, the stuff that's gumming up your systems, like your lymphatic system, your digestive system, your circulatory system, all that stuff, senescent cells, these zombie cells that they're dead but they're still around, and they're gumming up your systems. When you don't drink or eat water, when you don't eat or drink water for 5 days, you have this incredible healing that happens, and you don't have the headaches, you don't have the withdrawals, you don't have the GI disturbance. You're just kind of thirsty, you get kind of cotton mouth, but you actually don't feel the urges to eat chocolate or drink, another Topo Chico. Your body goes into this massive healing mode. On day 4 and day 5, you experience a stem cell release. Not a complete stem cell release, but your femurs begin to release pluripotent stem cells. Pluripotent stem cells are stem cells that can become any other type of cell. So they go to where your body needs them. If it's to repair scar tissue, it will. If it's to repair injuries to the brain, it will. If it's to repair tears in your gut, it will. This was the hardest thing I've ever done voluntarily, and it was tremendous. I did blood work the day before and the day after my 5-day dry fast. My testosterone went up 200 points. I lost 18 pounds, 10 of which is water, of course. I gained back about 8, but my physique changed dramatically. My love handles just about disappeared. The shape of my face and neck disappeared. the benefits are immense. I mean, we could do a whole 3 hours on this topic, but that in and of itself is transformational. And so my friend Theo and I have put together a program called Dry Fast with Friends, where you come and you meet with other people all around the world. We do daily phone calls. We do a Zoom call in the middle of the day, and then you have access to Theo and I as health coaches for 3 weeks, the week before, the week of, and the week after. Some of the testimonials that we've got from this, Chris, are mind-blowing. Like radical shifts in sleep, radical shifts in hormones, in posture. People age backwards. Like literally, you look at them before and after, and they look like they've shaved 5-10 years off of their life. Not off of their life. Like they've aged. They're Benjamin Buttoning in that 5 days.
It's the right direction, not the wrong direction.
Right. It's absolutely incredible. It's not for everybody. You know, there are some contraindications. If you have deep vein thrombosis or varicose veins, you probably shouldn't do it. If you're on 7 or 8 different medications, you probably shouldn't do it. What this is really for is people who have been ill and are looking for something that will where the body can heal itself. I mean, again, we've had people who had cavities that and fillings that broke off, that filled back in, remineralization of the teeth in 5 days. 5 days, stretch marks disappearing. Absolutely insane. So there's also a protocol where you can do intermittent dry fasting once or twice a week. So it's basically a 24-hour dry fast, but you do a lot of walking. You go for 6 miles of walking, and it burns fat like crazy. We've got people who are losing tons of weight healthily by going without food and water for 24 hours. So that's what I'm really passionate right now. And I think that it's going to become a very, very big thing over the next couple of years. You know, the other things that I'm biohacking and super into right now, you know, I love my cold plunge, you know, and I realized that I was doing it incorrectly. You know, a lot of people will use, you know, voluntary cold exposure after a workout to sort of reduce inflammation. That's not the way to do it. You actually want to do cold plunging before your workout. And what that does is it boosts your hormones. Your body's cold. All the heat goes to your trunk, out of your extremities, and then you get out and you work out, and the minimum effective dose. And again, I'm always looking for the minimum effective dose. I don't want to do any more than I need to. If you're in the cold plunge for 4 minutes, all you have to do is work out for 8 minutes afterward. Go for a brisk 8-minute walk. That's the minimum effective dose to see the benefits to your hormones, to your circulatory system. So now, you know, not every day, but you know, probably 5 days a week, I do cold plunge. Then I get on a vibration plate and I do an X3 workout, which is a variable resistance training with it's basically a band work exercise. And I'm the strongest that I've ever been. I'm the leanest that I've ever been. You know, I'll be 42 tomorrow, and you know, I'm sparring with 25-year-old, you know, stud wrestlers in the Jiu-Jitsu gym, and I'm stronger and more coordinated and more flexible. Like I'm feeling better now than I did 20 years ago as a you know, semi-professional athlete. Those are two that I'm really into. Red light is always beneficial. I use it. You know, the device the cup device that I showed you earlier is excellent, but this one is also cool. So this is red light therapy for your brain. So this device comes with these two attachments. They go up your nose and in your ears. And so it's red light therapy, highly, really powerful, that goes into your ear and gets into your brain. And also the red lights that go up your nose to expose your nasal cavity, which has this really thin mucous membrane. The blood flows throughout your body. It takes like 8 minutes or so for the blood to make it all its way around your body, and it's getting exposed through your mucosal linings in your nose. So you're getting a really potent, really powerful red light exposure through your nose. And they also make, I had this guy, Odishaw, was the podcast guest, and they also, I mean, I'm not going to brag, but I have really white teeth, and I've never done like a chemical, like I've never done chemicals or anything like that. I use a red light mouth guard. So oil pulling, you know, oral health is really important for me and my family. So I do oil pulling, and then I use that red light mouth guard for 15 minutes a day while I'm on the computer, and it sort of naturally whitens your teeth and strengthens your teeth as well. I mean, I could keep going, man. I mean,
Well, so
yeah,
one, you like coffee, right? Because I think you
yeah,
said, like you've mentioned it a couple times. I think you were even pounding coffee when you were a 6-year-old, right? For the caffeine,
yeah.
which is I find fascinating, and we could talk about kind of ADHD and uppers, caffeine being an upper. We'll save that. On the 5 day, so the plan is to come out with like fasting with friends, right? And that's going to be a 5 day fast. So access to you a week before, access the actual week, and then the access a week after. Talk about because I was following you on social media, and there were some pained posts. It was like, I don't know that I have the energy to do this post. I'm kind of making it up. Talk a little bit about the pain, like when the pain points hit, and you even I think struggled to start eating afterwards. Like there were some challenges, or walk a little bit through that.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're doing the dry fast, your body is going through essentially controlled starvation and controlled dehydration, and it's not particularly fun. You get some brain fog, you get lethargy. For a lot of people, especially people with brain injuries and physical injuries, there's some pain and discomfort, and that's what's happening is your blood is thicker, and it is highly oxygenated because of the stem cells that are being released days 4 and 5. But yeah, you quite literally go into survival mode. And day 4 and 5, when those stem cells are released, is when the real sort of magic happens. It is I do not want anybody to listen to this and then to go not eat or drink for 5 days. Like, don't do that. You got to read a ton and listen to experts. You can go to Dry Fast with Friends to learn more about how we do it as a group. But yeah, man, I was real tired. I was irritable.
So day one, easy, right? Because you're doing intermittent fasting.
Day 1 and 2 are pretty cake. I mean, you could still work, you could still do your thing. You'll have cotton mouth, you'll have dry mouth, you may be a little irritable, but day 1 and 2 are pretty easy. It's day 3 where things get really challenging. You are in deep ketosis, and your body is healing itself. You get intracellular detoxification that then you pee out. Your urine, you pee the whole time. You pee, 3 or 4 times a day during this, because what's happening is the fat on your body is being used for energy instead of glucose. So it's pulling the fat. You're actually burning fat, not muscle, which is another thing. You actually retain muscle better on a dry fast. So the color of my urine went from, light yellow to like iced tea sort of brown by day 4 and 5.
Yep.
But I was tired. I was out of it. I was spacey. And day 3 is hard. Day 4 is when the stem cells start to kick in. It's like the morning of day 4, and I actually felt those happen. I suddenly had a bunch of energy. I had mental clarity. I went downstairs and like started to fold laundry and do dishes and like play with the kids. At my normal energy. My wife was like, "Whoa, what is going on? You were like struggling yesterday, and now you're like, you should take it easy." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe I should." But it's also really important to keep moving so that so that the lymph can actually flow. And there's 6 main lymph around your body where you can kind of like tap to get it moving. There's different spots where you can keep the lymph moving. Walking really helps that. Day 4 is pretty challenging. Day 5 is again pretty challenging. We had 2 people go to day 7 in our last group. They have some pretty serious issues that they're dealing with, but that you should see their Oura Ring data from before the dry fast to now. Their readiness, their sleep score are off the charts now. They're again dealing with some serious issues, but what is even more important then the actual window of not eating or drinking, that's pretty straightforward. It's how you rehydrate and refeed afterward that is extremely important. You can't go from not eating or drinking to just like chugging soda and eating pasta. Like that could do some really serious damage to your organs and, especially your pancreas. So it's really important to go very slow in your rehydration, like little sips of water for like half a day, and then a little bit more hydration into the back half of the day and a day two. Bone broths, eventually some kombucha, some fruit eventually, but you got to be kind of careful with the sugar. Like a blueberry on day two for me was like an explosion of flavor that I had never experienced before.
Wow.
So the refeeding and rehydration process is really, really critical to get right, because that's where your body is re-nourishing itself and refueling itself from this massive healing week that you just had. So it's really important to get that stuff right. And we've put together we've pulled the data from the Russians. We've pulled some of the protocols from the Phoenix protocol and really implemented this into this program so that people can have the best success and quite literally heal their bodies without the use of pharmaceuticals. Also, I did enemas on day 4 and 5, and I don't love enemas, but I was interested to see what would come out of my system. Shocking things came out of my system. I eat really clean, and I have for a long time, but the amount of parasites and gallstones that exited my body on the enema days of 4 and 5 were astounding. And they're done in a healthy way. I've consolidated the stuff that I don't need in my body anymore and then let it go, released it. And so my digestion has been better. My skin has been clearer. I look younger. I have more energy, more focus, sleep better. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be popular.
That's okay. So that's absolutely fascinating. I enjoyed watching the journey. We'll get a link where they can kind of follow up with that's really cool. And you think dry fasting, just so I tend to do a 24-hour fast from Sunday dinner to Monday dinner. And you think like cutting out water in that time will have a significant impact?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would suggest is eat dinner earlier. So like 4 if you can. And then, have your last glass of water and then break your fast with water and some like bone broth or some soup on Monday night. But make sure that you go for that 6-mile walk. Get it in however you can. Because what it does is it sort of, walking's obviously good for you, but it activates, you're massaging your organs, you're moving lymphatic fluid throughout your body, which is really important just to kind of keep the engine rolling inside. But yeah, I run a little experiment and do it the next do it this next coming Sunday to Monday. And then report back, because I'd love to hear. It's not as hard as you think it is.
Yeah, no. I have almost no problem. Like, yesterday was my Monday, so I think we ate early. I think it was done eating at 6. I do have a little treat that's super small, and then my next meal is 7 o'clock the next night. So I think cutting out water won't be that big of a deal. I think it'll be cotton mouth or whatever. But I'm interested to have that experience. All right, as I feared, I think I got through half of my questions. That's usually how it works. I tend to over prepare, and we'll probably just reconvene at some point. But I want to get into the wrap up questions. So the first wrap up question is, Sean, how long do you have a target age that you want to live to?
I think I do. I think it's reasonable to believe that 130 is doable.
130. I love it. And how long do you think humans can live?
Well, there's myth and lore of, the Chinese herbalists that ate very little, nibbled on roots, and apparently lived to like 350. I think that it's probably going to be a few generations from now where we understand the mind and the body well enough to know, and interventions to be able to live to 200. that's reasonable, but I don't think that we're going to see that in our lifetime. But maybe for our kids or grandkids, they may be experiencing someone that, lives beyond 150. It's so tough though, Chris, because, the gal who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day and half a bottle of whiskey, but laughs really hard and has great friends and things she loves to do, she lives to 110, right? Or 105, and the guy who, wears sunscreen every day, which no one should ever do, wears sunscreen every day and spends $1 million a year on, longevity stuff, gets sick at 85. So, there are other elements that play into this, like love, like friends. So I think it's tricky, but I think it will suss out over time, and people will absolutely be living longer. And honestly, and I hate to beat this drum more, I think fasting, and specifically dry fasting, is going to be an essential part of that.
Very cool. All right. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? Let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, for longevity and a long health span that you would share.
I think sleep is the number one thing. Throw away your microwave, turn off your Wi-Fi router at night, switch from LED to incandescent light, wear blue blocking glasses if you're going to look at a screen. Sleep is the number one thing. It's worth obsessing over because it improves your quality of life tremendously. Meditation or neurofeedback, some of those practices that we've talked about earlier, are also essential because it makes you better at everything that you do. Everything that you do. The way you think, the way you work, the way you focus, the way you self-regulate. You have to train that muscle. So I think that's absolutely essential. And then water. I think water is such an underutilized key for health and longevity. You should never drink tap water. Flat out. It's not good for you. So you can go to findaspring.com, and you can locate an artesian spring where you can drink structured primary water straight out of the ground that's going to nourish you in ways that you really don't even think about. But I think that's really important. And also get filters for your showers and baths so that you're not bathing in hot chlorine water that's being absorbed through your skin every single day, twice a day. So I think that's another key too.
So I love the literal kind of subtle irony of the guy preaching about dry fast and lists water as one of the things.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's right there. What are 1 to 2 things that people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
Ooh, that's a good question. What are 2 things?
That one can be a little tougher.
Yeah,
what do people get
wrong? People get wrong.
Think about your coaching clients. What do they have wrong up front, day 1, day 2?
We're talking about like health span?
Yeah, wrong. What do they get wrong about a long health span and a long lifespan?
An over-reliance on pharmaceuticals. We do want shortcuts. We do want a pill for everything to make it better. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you're on 2 or 3 or 4, I think the average is three medications for people over 18 now in America. You're going to want to do everything that you can to get off of those. It's taxing your organs. It's disrupting your sort of natural rhythms. We now know that statins are a scam. We now know, there's just so many, that's a whole nother 1 hour podcast. The keys to longevity and health span are not found in a bottle. They're not found in capsules. So the pharmaceuticals that you think are good for you are not as good as making the lifestyle changes that make it so that you don't need those chemicals. So that's a really important thing. A lot of people also over exercise, especially cardio. We know that heart health is important. Walking is good, But thinking that you've got to go do an hour of cardio 5 days a week, it's probably doing more for your stress. It's probably stressing you out more and having you cling on to fat and keep fat on your body because you're constantly introducing fight or flight through, marathon aerobic sessions. Switch to lifting weights, run a 3-month or a 6-month test where you stop doing the cardio, go for walks, stop doing the cardio and switch to weights. You'll notice how quickly your nutrition or how quickly your physique changes, and capitalize on protein consumption. The rule of thumb is 1 gram of protein per desired weight, per pound of weight of desired weight every single day. So for me, I want to hover at like 185. So I'm getting 185 grams of protein every single day. And it's totally changed my life in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I dramatically upped my protein intake and have added muscle, and have been, less hungry. And I'm doing intermittent fasting, so yeah, I'm hungry for about an hour, maybe 2 hours a day. But it's hard to cram, in my case, 175 grams of protein, right into 2 meals. Like it's a challenge, but I feel so much better. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Sean, how can people contact you?
Yeah, I'm easy to get a hold of. You can go to SeanMcCormick.com. The name's on the description. And I'm also really active on Instagram. It's at Real Sean McCormick. Easy to find there. I'm really responsive. If you liked any of this or if you have questions about any of the stuff that we talked about today, go ahead and reach out. And then again, check out dryfastwithfriends.com. If you're fascinated or interested, I imagine that your listeners are edge seekers. They're people that want to find hacks and an edge in their life. And I think that dry fasting is a very fast, very effective way to do that. So that's where I'd send people.
And what in the near future are you excited about?
Aliens, man.
That's another podcast.
That is another podcast. Let me have a different answer. You can leave that in, but I'm excited for me personally. I need exhaustive exercise just about every day to feel like my best self, and I'm extremely passionate about jiu-jitsu. So I'll be competing in about a month. I absolutely love it. I look forward to every single night where I can go and train and try to choke people and try to not be choked by my friends. So that's aliens and jiu-jitsu, I guess.
That's pretty awesome. All right. You can find him at Sean McCormick. These will be in the show notes, but SeanMcCormick.com. On IG, it's real Sean McCormick. Check out his podcast, Optimal Performance Podcast. He's completed 517 episodes, a lot to dig into there. And then dryfastwithfriends.com. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're such a great interviewer, Chris. I don't know if you get compliments much. I'm sure you do, but you're the way let me just give me 30 seconds.
Yes.
The ability to ask good questions and also provide some of your own opinions quickly and then ask another question. That's how I like to do my podcast. And you're actually listening. A lot of podcasters, they don't really listen. They ask the question and then they're just waiting for their turn to ask the next question. And you have a very interactive style that I think is compelling. That's the way I like to do mine as well. And you're just a really great interviewer. And listening to some of the episodes that you've done, you just do a really good job. And I know that it's going to continue to grow. So thank you for having me.
Wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I will pay you appropriately. All right, Sean, take care. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.